Every year, a disease kills more children under 5 than any other infectious disease on Earth. It's not COVID, it's not tuberculosis, it's malaria. And until yesterday, if your baby was born weighing less than 11 pounds, there was literally no approved medicine that could save their life. That just changed. Switzerland just approved the world's first malaria treatment, specifically designed for the tiniest, most vulnerable patients, newborns and infants weighing between 4 and 11 pounds. This might sound like just another drug approval, but here's what makes this different. For decades, these babies were systematically excluded from clinical trials. Too small, too risky, pharmaceutical companies said. So while we had treatments for older kids and adults, the smallest humans, the ones who needed protection most, had nothing. Let me paint you a picture of what malaria actually does. You probably know it comes from mosquito bites, but what happens next is straight out of a horror movie. The parasite enters your bloodstream and heads straight for your liver, where it multiplies like crazy. Then it bursts out and starts destroying your red blood cells from the inside. Your body goes into overdrive trying to fight it. Fever spikes, chills that make you shake uncontrollably, headaches that feel like your skull is splitting. For adults, it's hell. For a newborn baby whose immune system is barely developed, it's often a death sentence. Now, imagine you're a parent in sub-Saharan Africa. Your newborn gets malaria. You rush to the clinic, and the doctor has to tell you there's no approved medicine for a baby that small. They might try giving a tiny dose of adult medication and hope for the best, but they're basically guessing. That's been the reality for millions of parents. Until now. The drug is called Coartem Baby, and it combines two powerful antimalarial agents, artemether and lumefantrine. Think of it like a tag team. Artemether goes in fast and hard, killing most of the parasites within hours. But parasites are sneaky. Some always try to hide and come back later. That's where lumefantrine comes in. It sticks around in the body for days, hunting down any parasites that try to make a comeback. What's brilliant about this combination is how they figured out the exact ratio for tiny bodies. Adult metabolism and baby metabolism are completely different worlds. Too much medication could be toxic. Too little, and the parasites survive and potentially develop resistance. The researchers had to thread an incredibly fine needle, and they did it. But here is where the story gets really interesting. Getting this drug approved wasn't your typical pharmaceutical process. Swissmedic, the Swiss regulatory agency, created something called the Marketing Authorization for Global Health Products procedure. Sounds boring, but it's actually revolutionary. They brought in 8 African countries, places where malaria actually kills babies, to help evaluate the drug. Burkina Faso, Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, and others all had a seat at the table. Why does this matter? Because usually a drug gets approved in Switzerland or the US or Europe, and then African countries have to wait years to do their own approval process. By the time the medicine reaches the people who need it most, countless lives are lost. This new approach means those African nations can fast-track approval since they were part of the original evaluation. It's the first time anything like this has been done. The consortium behind this breakthrough reads like an Avengers lineup of malaria fighters. You've got Medicines for Malaria Venture leading the charge, with backing from the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership. They pooled together over 40 million euros, not to make profit, but to solve a problem that affects the poorest people on Earth. Novartis, the company that will manufacture Coartem Baby, has committed to providing it on a non-for-profit basis in malaria endemic regions. Let me throw some numbers at you that'll blow your mind. In 2023 alone, there were 263 million malaria cases worldwide. That's like if everyone in the United States got malaria, minus California. The 8 African countries involved in this drug approval process account for nearly half of all those cases. We're not talking about some rare disease here. We're talking about something that affects more people than live in most countries. The timing couldn't be more critical. Climate change is expanding mosquito habitats. Drug-resistant malaria strains are popping up in Southeast Asia and threatening to spread. We're in a race against evolution itself, and every new weapon in our arsenal matters. What makes Coartem Baby special isn't just the chemistry, it's what it represents. For the first time, the global health system said these tiny babies matter enough to develop medicine specifically for them. Not adapted adult medicine, not guesswork, real medicine, tested medicine, medicine that works. The drug should hit the market before the end of 2025. That might seem far away, but in pharmaceutical terms, it's lightning fast. Every day between now and then, babies will die from malaria. But after decades of nothing, we finally have hope on the horizon. This breakthrough didn't happen overnight. The PAM Africa Consortium has been working since 2020, training African scientists, building clinical trial infrastructure, and creating a pipeline of next-generation antimalarial drugs. They're not just fighting today's malaria, they're preparing for the malaria of tomorrow, including strains that might resist current treatments. Think about what this means on a human level. Somewhere in Kenya or Nigeria or Tanzania, there's a mother who will give birth to a premature baby next year. That baby will get malaria because in some parts of Africa, it's not a question of if, but when. But unlike every mother before her for the past 50 years, she won't have to watch helplessly. There will be medicine, real medicine, tested medicine, medicine that works. This is bigger than one drug. It's proof that when we decide something matters, when we put resources and brilliant minds and political will behind a problem, we can solve it. Even problems that seemed impossible. Even problems that affect people with no money and no power. For those of us lucky enough to live where malaria is just something we take pills for when we travel, it's easy to forget that for billions of people, it's a constant, terrifying reality. This drug approval might not make headlines in your local news, but in villages across Africa, it's going to save lives that everyone else forgot about. The scientists who developed Coartem Baby could have worked on more profitable drugs. The regulators could have stuck to their traditional approval processes. The pharmaceutical company could have focused on treatments for wealthy markets, but they didn't. They chose to solve a problem that matters. What do you think drives people to spend years of their lives developing medicine for babies who will never be able to pay for it? That's the real story here. In a world that often feels like it's falling apart, there are still people quietly doing extraordinary things. They're not doing it for fame or fortune. They're doing it because somewhere a baby needs medicine, and that's enough. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.